Each of the following documents comes from the archives at the Norfolk Record Office and have been chosen especially for the Ballgowns and dinner invitations themed Reading from the Archives. The documents include a description of the Lord Mayor's feast in Norwich in 1778 and the Grand Poudre Ball, or a powder ball, from 1905.
This extract about the Mayor's feast is part of a longer letter from Elizabeth Leaves to her mother, written in 1778. Elizabeth, or Betsy as she was known, was the daughter of Reverend James Reading and Elizabeth. Betsy had been engaged and then secretly married to Edward Leaves in 1774. They intended to marry when Edward had been ordained, but various delays ensued that the couple married clandestinely by special licence in 1774. Only in the following year was Edward ordained and presented to the family livings of Reedham and Freethorpe. Prior to this, however, they had borrowed money to live on and had to pay off the serious debts which he had run up through his extravagant lifestyle before marriage. For the rest of their lives, the Leaves were in debt. Their letters discussed their financial straits, at the same time revealing that they were doing little to curb their expenditure. Strumpshaw, Wednesday morn. We judged it best, as the Mayor's feast was so near, not to send away our letters until we could give you some account of it. We went from hence yesterday morning, ready dressed, and were sumptuously entertained, with every rarity that could be procured, a delightful band of music playing the whole time, which rendered it extremely cheerful. The hall is a noble room, which held the company, though very large, very commodiously. The crowd of coaches was so great that our carriages, though ordered at 6, could not get to the door till 9, when we drove to Mr. Landley's and drank tea, and afterwards returned to Mr. Nelson's. Ladies were all elegantly dressed, especially Mrs. Mayoress, who had a very pretty brocaded lustring suit of cloth, with a very large hood, richly ornamented with a silver fringe and beads, and gauze stripped with a beautiful pair of pointed lappets, very long, ruffles and tippet the same, with handsome diamonds and pearls in her hair and ears. The Mayor was in a lilac suit of cloths elegantly trimmed with silver. They have 2 daughters and a son, the eldest no more than 8. The little boy had on a blue silk spotted suit of cloths. The little girl had a fine worked muslin frock, trimmed and bordered with silver over a pale pink lustring with fine milking lace. I was extremely pleased with my day's entertainment. It was quite a new thing for me, and different from anything I ever saw. Everything was conducted with great order and decorum, and the Mayor and Mayoress behaved with great politeness to all the company. Mr. Nelson will give you further account of the company. We are all going to drink tea today at Mrs. Emeris's, who has her son, the clergyman from Lincolnshire, with his wife and family at her house. From thence we go to Reedham, and tomorrow meet the same company here, and on Friday to a card party at Mr. Goddard's. I wish you were all with us. Pray, write soon.
This letter is from the same collection as our first letter and relates to the same family. It's from Elizabeth Thompson, formerly Leath's, to her mother Betsy, who by this time had remarried Mr. Peach. It's written in 1798, and Elizabeth gives a full account of a ball hosted by Edward Leath and describes the food they ate, the music they danced to, and their sumptuous surroundings. It's dated October the 7th, 1798 in Norwich. It's addressed to "My dear mother," and the transcript begins 5 lines from the bottom of the first page. Edward's ball had been a subject of conversation ever since it took place. I believe it was all received with justice by all who were present to be the most elegant and well-planned thing of the kind ever given in Norwich. The company were received and drank tea in Mrs. Hare's and Miss Smith's rooms, where the ladies and gentlemen drew for partners. George handed out the ladies' numbers and James the gentlemen's. Edward, of course, took number 1, being master of ceremonies, and Miss Thurlow drew number 1 of the ladies' tickets. After which Edward introduced each gentleman to his partner, there being many strangers to each other, particularly the barrack officers, all of whom he invited. The company being all arrived and tea over, each gentleman handed his partner into the dancing room. Those who were not dancers were handed down by other gentlemen, as he had contrived on purpose to have more men than women, the former being much soon tired of dancing than the latter. The passage to your parlour where we danced had a temporary door put up at the entrance, which encased it entirely and made it very comfortable, as it was most brilliantly lighted up, covered with carpet, and Miss Gosling's sofa and chairs set down one side. The band, which consisted of 3 violins, a violoncello, pipe and tuba, and bassoon, were likewise there. A harp he could not procure in Norwich. There were 3 card tables in Miss Jones's room, and the refreshments were made in the room that was Miss Tremlett's bedroom, the door of which, as well as the parlour, were taken off the hinges, and a large screen put before the table and fire to hide preparations and servants. The supper, which was as elegant as anything could be, was set out in Miss Gosling's room, down the 2 sides and across one end of the room, in the form of a gallery. He was obliged to hire the hall tables, they being much more newer than any others he could procure. We sat down, about 54, to supper, with very great ease, and had 7 servants in the room to wait, and 1 at the sideboard in the passage, so that there was no confusion whatever. Birch sent down the dressed cakes and raised pies, and a London fishmonger sturgeon, prawns, and crawfish, and Covent Garden furnished the pines, grapes, and peaches. We danced till about 4 o'clock in the morning, and everybody seemed to enjoy their evening very much, and went away highly delighted. Really, without the least flattering, I cannot do justice to it. In the account, what Captain Talbot told James the other day will give you a better idea than I am able. That if the Prince himself gave one at Carlton House, it could not have been more splendid or elegant, so far as to say that he sent out between 80 and 90 invitations, and that some of the company did not stay supper. My aunt would have come with George, but my cousins were with her, and she could not leave them. Our next extract comes from an entry recorded in a journal in 1905. The journals of Hilda Zigamala were written and illustrated between 1889 and 1920. The pages include a combination of diary entries, family photographs, drawings, paintings and cuttings, covering all aspects of domestic and family life, wider family celebrations and events, social life, balls and parties, opera and drama at London theatres, and attendance at major public events, such as the opening of Parliament, country pursuits and other leisure activities such as painting, drawing, photography, golf and tennis, pets, gardening, travelling, cycling, motoring, army life in England and abroad also feature. In this extract we hear Hilda talking about how she spent Christmas in 1904 and a Poudre ball hosted by Lady North, Hilda's mother, on the 6th of January 1905. Roxton, Banbury, December the 23rd, 1904 to January the 11th, 1905. We all, namely Jack, Shackelford, John and I, came here to stay with Val and Eric for Christmas, and a very happy time we have had too, and John has so enjoyed himself. There are such an amount of cousins in the place. Mina Fitzgerald's 4 children, Val's 2, John and Mary Bunyan at the Abbey, of course. They all meet all and every day and have tremendous fun together. John, of course, is much the youngest, but still thoroughly enjoys all the games and chaff. We had a great day on Christmas, and really the presents the children all had would have stocked a shop. John's excitement over it all was delightful to see. He hung up his trousers as well as his stocking, but we were all fairly tired out by the end of the day. We have spent most of our spare time working at cutting down the old bushes and rubbish in Val's garden, and then making a huge bonfire and burning it. It really is great fun, and we all, children as well, work like navvies. Lady North's dance at the Abbey was a great success. It was a Poudre ball, and nothing can describe how pretty it was, as it all suited the lovely old house to perfection, and everyone looked so nice too, as powder is so becoming. We danced in the big dining room, which of course is all oak panelling from floor to ceiling, and it showed off the powder to perfection. I had not been to a ball for ages and quite dreaded it, fearing I should be quite a wallflower at my old age, but I managed to get lots of partners and enjoyed myself thoroughly. We did not get home till nearly 4 a.m. Then Lady North had a children's dance, and I found it very difficult repressing him enough, as he would want to cut slides on the ballroom floor and generally get above himself. But it was a pretty sight, as there was nearly 100 children in all there. Of course, Val and I have done a good deal of painting together. We always do, and I've got on with my miniatures very well. I think I like doing them more and more, and we are now returning to London after having been here for nearly 3 weeks.
Our final document comes from a letter to Elizabeth, Betsy reading, from a school friend, Mary Pocock. Written in 1772, this extract begins with a description of a dinner and ball at Mason House, London, it being the first of its kind that Mary had attended. She mentions artificial palm trees and the clothes worn by the Lord Mayor and the Lady Mayoress.
I was at both the dinner and ball at the Mansion House on Easter Monday. The dinner appears to me extremely elegant, as it was the first I had ever been to in public. We dined in the Egyptian hall, where there were 3 tables, each of which held 100 people with great ease. The desert was a string of pavilions at small distances from each other, and between were artificial palm trees, besides shrubs and flowers. Some of the temples were so high as to touch the glass lustres which were suspended from the ceiling. At the table where the Lord Mayor, Lady Mayoress and their company sat were 2 reservoirs for water, with gold and silver fish swimming in them, and in the middle were grottos with fountains which continued playing all the time we were in the hall. At 7:30, Lady Mayoress withdrew, and all the company followed, when all the rooms were opened and illuminated, even to his lordship's bedchamber, and we amused ourselves with rambling about till 9, when Lady Mayoress, who was dressed in a white suite of clothes trimmed with a black lace flounce at least half a yard deep, opened the ball with Lord Mountmorris. I believe it was near 11 before the country dances, for all the aldermen's wives, daughters, granddaughters and cousins to the 3rd and 4th generation are to dance minuets. By this time, most of the additional company was come to the ball. I assure you I never saw such a crowd, nor was ever happier than when I got out of it. There was afterwards dancing in 2 other rooms, where I danced a couple of cotillons, which completely fatigued me, and after spending a day and a night at the Mansion House, made the arrival of our coach very agreeable. Circumstances you, my dear, will have some reason to think that of their being, and end of a sheet of paper. Adieu, my dear Miss Redding, believe me to be your affectionate friend and humble servant, M. Pocock. May 5th, 1772.